Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and I'm going to be sharing with you Breathing Mindfulness Meditation. I'm going to teach you Breathing Mindfulness Meditation because we just restarted our group learning program, and I'm doing a 4-part series on Breathing Mindfulness Meditation, where today I'm going to teach it to you inside and out, backwards and forwards, helping you to understand the details of breathing mindfulness meditation, and then we're going to do a session together at the end. I know typically if you've been attending classes, you know that we usually do meditation at the beginning, but today we're going to kind of reverse it a little bit so that I can teach it to you first, and then we can actually do it together. I'm going to be opening up for questions as we go, so feel free to ask any and all questions that you like, where I'll pause a few times. You can actually put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or you can raise your hand electronically in Zoom and unmute your microphone and ask any and all questions that you like. So let me just switch over to some visual aids here to be able to help everyone online to be able to learn. All right, there we go. All right, so I'm going to share with you guys this topic of breathing mindfulness meditation because this is the style of meditation that you'd like to really start with, building up your practice. If you've just restarted the group learning program with us, or you're just new to the path to enlightenment, this is a meditation that you'd like to spend at least 4 weeks working with in order to build this up slowly but surely. So I'm going to teach you about this so that then that way you can build up your practice and be working with all the other wisdom of the Buddha to be able to build up your life practice and move your way closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. So first, let's just talk about some meditation basics. There's just some basic things that we can talk about in terms of meditation in order to be sure that you're understanding meditation in the way that I'm teaching it, because oftentimes people have different thoughts about different words, and because of impermanence, some people think of words in one way, some people think about words in other ways. But at least for while you're learning with me, when I use the word meditation, you'll understand what I'm talking about. When I use the word meditation, I'm talking about a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to either eliminate unwholesome qualities of the mind or cultivate wholesome qualities of the mind in the positions of seated, lying, standing, or walking. So sometimes people think that maybe they're going to go exercise and they say, oh, honey, I'll see you later. I'm going to go to the gym and meditate, or I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate, or I'm going to go gardening or driving and I'm going to go meditate. Well, if somebody thought that those things were meditation, then they wouldn't actually be able to move their mind to enlightenment. If they hear the recommendation that I share later, where I share that it's important that 2 or 3 times a day you're doing meditation. Well, if you're just going to walk the dog, or you're just doing gardening or driving or going to the gym, you wouldn't actually be doing the activity that the Buddha taught that's going to actually train the mind to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. So this is a definition that you may or may not think of meditation in the same exact way, but at least when I say the word meditation, you'll know what it is that I'm talking about. It's this dedicated, active, purposeful training session to eliminate unwholesome qualities of the mind and or cultivate wholesome qualities of the mind in the positions of seated, lying, standing, or walking. And meditation is not all these other things like exercising, walking the dog, gardening, or driving. Some other basics to keep in mind is it's important to have a meditation teacher. That all too often people don't realize that you actually need a teacher, because we live in a self-service environment, whereas if you'd like to bake a cake or something like this, you can probably pull up a YouTube video and figure out how to bake a cake. But getting to enlightenment is not the same thing as that. You're going to need teachers and guides to help you along the way. There's only one type of individual that wouldn't be able to need teachers or guides on their way to enlightenment, and that's an actual Buddha. And the last Buddha that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. So you're going to need teachers and guides to be able to help you along the path. And I'll just share one example with you to help you understand how important it is to have a teacher as part of your journey to enlightenment. There was an individual several years ago who was a practicing doctor in their country, and they didn't understand that you needed teachers and guides to help them on the path to enlightenment. So they were reading books, they were watching videos, they were doing things like this to be able to train their mind to be able to move to this enlightened mental state. And as they were doing this and training their mind, they got to a point where they were having obsessive thoughts. They were sleeping 23 hours a day. They were having high degree of depression and anxiety. Their relationships were falling apart. They were having suicidal thoughts. They were having difficulties to be able to go to work and actually work because they were sleeping for practically 23 hours a day. Now, these are things that I don't suspect will ever happen for you because you understand it's important to have a teacher or guides. But this individual, after 2 years of working on their mind, they didn't have anybody to reach out to and get help when they were meeting with certain challenges, and they were just doing whatever they thought was best. And this isn't the way to awaken the mind to enlightenment. You need teachers and guides. So this individual eventually reached out to me, and they found me in one way or another, and I started working with them over the internet. And I invited them to Thailand because they were having, some challenges that was challenging for me to be able to help them over the internet. So they came here to Thailand, they spent a few weeks, and then they ultimately went back to their home country. And over a period of multiple years, they worked themselves out of those issues and those problems. They're now back to work. They're not having suicidal thoughts. They're not sleeping 23 hours a day or any of those kinds of things. But their relationship with their fiance did end up falling apart. So this individual was obviously intelligent. They were a practicing doctor, right? But they just didn't understand the wisdom that they needed to have teachers and guides as part of their journey to enlightenment. And that's why they ran into these difficulties. So whether you consider me to be your teacher or guide at any time in your life or not is a choice for you to make. Just know that if at any time during your journey to enlightenment you need help, you're always welcome to reach out. And I'm here to help you. Whether it's now or 5 years or 10 years from now, you can reach out to me at any time. And if I'm not the person that you feel comfortable reaching out to, that's fine too. As long as you find somebody that you can reach out to and you have confidence in that can give you the guidance that you need. Because you can't ask questions to a book. So you're going to need somebody to reach out to that's alive today that can guide you along the path. Then there's 4 positions for meditation that the body can use, these 4 different positions. And you would learn these different positions at different times in your journey to enlightenment. And then you would utilize them like tools. That's like a tool belt. So I'm going to introduce you to these 4 positions and help you understand what they are. And then I will share with you how I've used these positions in the past. But then you're not interested in believing anything that I share with you about meditation or anything else. Instead, you can learn and understand what it is that I'm sharing with you. You can reflect on that, and then you can practice it and see the truth for yourself. So I'm going to share with you what these positions are and how I've used them. And then I'm going to invite you to be able to use them on your own and see what situations they actually work for you. Don't just believe me that they work in these ways. Instead, build up your toolbox so that you have these different tools to be able to use at different times. So the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions are what the Buddha taught, because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's not possible. So the seated position is where you're either sitting on the floor, in a chair, a bench, a sofa, wheelchair. You can really sit however you like. If you're sitting on the floor, someone might put some cushions under their rear and then cross their legs. And if your legs are crossed, you'd like to just do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation in the lower body and cause pain. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. And then with your hands and arms, you can put your right hand over your left with your thumbs together if you like. That's the way that the Buddha did this, and he put that into his lap. If that's comfortable for you, you could use it. But there's other options here. It's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people just rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And then the same thing is true for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you're comfortable. You can put your feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles. But sometimes I sit in a chair with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of the upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you're slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid with the upper body, the mind could be overactive or uptight. Not only will having your sternum up and shoulders back help keep your mind attentive and alert, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Remember, you would like your mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. So you're going to need your mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. In terms of this particular position, it is pretty much the primary position that most people use. I would say 80 to 90% of all the meditation I've ever done has been in the seated position. So this is one that a lot of people use. But sometimes in the seated position, you can notice aches and pains in the knees, the ankles, the hips, the back. If you're noticing any of those kinds of things, that's where the lying position comes in. You could lie on the floor, on your back, face up, and you have your arms out to the side. If you've ever done yoga, they call this Shavasana pose or corpse pose, resting pose. These are the ways that they actually refer to it. With your arms out to the side, just laying on your back with all your muscles relaxed. What you're going to be doing with the mind is exactly the same as all the other types of positions. It's just that you're lying on the floor with all your muscles relaxed. Then there's a standing position, because sometimes in the seated position and lying position, you'll notice that you have a tendency to fall asleep. And if you're noticing that, you could switch to either a standing position or a walking position. The standing position is where you stand with your feet at shoulder width, and you might just clasp your wrist in front of you lightly, or put your arms along the sides of you, or clasp behind you. Again, you're doing the same thing with the mind. It's just that the body's in a different position. This will help keep the mind more invigorated if you're noticing that you're falling asleep. I've also used the standing position in situations where maybe I was at a bus stop and I knew the bus wasn't coming for 10 or 15 minutes and there wasn't anybody anywhere to sit. So I just did some standing meditation for maybe just 5, 10, 15 minutes. I didn't consider it one of my main primary meditations for the day, but it was like a little touch up for myself. I even used it at like government offices where there's like a line. Maybe you're waiting in line and this line only moves every 5, 10, 15 minutes. I could stand there and do a little bit of a touch-up meditation while I was standing in line. Then there's walking position. Walking position is also really helpful if you're noticing you're falling asleep in any of the other positions, or if you have an overactive mind. If you would like to learn this walking position, I've taught it many times, and it's on our YouTube channel. You can actually just go to our YouTube channel, Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, and you can actually type walking meditation, and you'll be able to find it there, because I'm using a stationary camera right now, and it's not really best to be able to show you how to do walking meditation here, but I've taught it many times, so you can find it on our YouTube channel. And you can use this whenever you're noticing that your mind is needing to be more active, and the last thing you're thinking about is sitting down and being still, or lying and being still. You would like to kind of get up and get moving, or if you're noticing you're falling asleep. So these are the 4 positions, but remember, don't believe me about how I use these. You can use them interchangeably in different situations. You don't need to just take a pose during meditation and just stick with that. You can actually switch your positions. If you've heard from people to take a pose, and even if you're feeling pain, to stay in that position and just breathe through the pain, I would suggest that this is very unwise. If you understand the Buddha's life story, you know that at one time, prior to him understanding the path to enlightenment, he was hanging himself upside down from trees, laying on beds of nails, piercing his body with metal implements, starving himself, and he understood later that these things don't actually lead to enlightenment. So he gave up on all those types of practices. So sometimes that thought about causing physical pain to the body and training the mind to overcome that is still around. And some people might teach you that if you notice pain in the body, just breathe through it. This is very unwise, because the physical pain is there to tell you that, hey, something is wrong here, and take action. So if you're noticing hip pain, back pain, knee pain, or things like this, just switch your body position. There's no need to sit through that. There's no awards given. There's no certificates given. There's no prizes that are given to just breathe through the pain. In fact, that would take you away from the goal of meditation, because if your mind is just experiencing pain, it would be difficult for you to actually do what you need to do during the meditation. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions related to the basics before I move on into some other content. Remember, you can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and unmute your microphone to ask any and all questions that you like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do then is I'll just move on here into the next part of the topic that I'm sharing with you, which is starting and conducting your meditation session. It's important to keep in mind that the mind is the boss and the body is the employee. The reason why I share this with you is because everything that's going on in the mind, that's like the central processing unit of a computer. A computer has a CPU, or a central processing unit. The keyboard, the microphone, the mouse, the monitor, all of these things are functioning because of the CPU. If there's a problem with the CPU, the whole rest of the computer doesn't function well. Well, the same thing is true about the human being, that everything is going through the mind, but you need to use the body in order to interact with the world. That's like the peripherals of the computer. And by keeping in mind that the mind is the boss and the body is the employee, you can understand that in order to get to the boss, which is the mind, you have to go through the employee. This is why you would like the body to be comfortable, not painful and not luxurious, but instead comfortable. That's in the middle. Whereas if the employees are painful, if they're experiencing a lot of pain, they're not going to take you to go see the boss. Or if the employees are too luxurious, they're not going to take you to go see the boss because they're going to be complacent and potentially lazy. So you'd like the employees to be comfortable, just like the body. You'd like the body to be comfortable so that then you can actually train the mind. When you read the teachings of the Buddha about meditation, and he's guiding his students and he's instructing his students how to meditate, you will see in his own words that he will typically say, set up mindfulness in front of you before you start meditating. What mindfulness is awareness of mind. You're going to learn this more as this program goes on, where you're going to learn more about what mindfulness is. But for now, you can just think of it as awareness of mind. And what the Buddha is teaching you by setting up mindfulness in front of you before you start meditating is that he's teaching you to have awareness of the mind, that you don't just plop down into meditation and start actually meditating. You would like to build some awareness of the mind. And by doing this, you're actually going to experience more benefits right up front at the beginning of your meditation. Whereas if you were to plop down into meditation and just start meditating, it's going to take you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to start getting some awareness of mind and actually start reaping the rewards and the benefits of meditating. But if you can set up some mindfulness in front of you prior to meditating, now you have that awareness of mind right at the beginning of your meditation, and you can start getting benefit right away. So what I do for this is I do chanting. That really helps to build awareness of mind and awareness of the breath as you're easing into the meditation. So if you would like to learn the chanting, you're more than welcome to. I've taught this many times. And again, this is on our YouTube channel. You can just type Learn Buddhist Chanting, and you will be able to find places where I've taught Buddhist chanting, and you'll be able to learn that, because that's what I do on the way into meditation and on the way out. Then in terms of your time, frequency, and schedule of meditation, it's important to understand that it's impossible for you to meditate at exactly the same time every day. It would be impossible. So if you set your alarm to meditate every day at 8 a.m., you're not going to be able to do that. It's not possible because the world around you is constantly changing. It is impermanent. There are times where I've been meditating and my son would walk into my room and say, "Dad, I need you to take me to school." And I was like, "Oh yeah, really? I thought your mom was going to take you to school." He said, "Yeah, me too, but she's gone. I don't know where she's at, so I need you to take me to school." So in this situation, I wasn't able to meditate at my normal time. I needed to go off and take him to school, and then I can meditate when I come home. So you're not going to be able to meditate at exactly the same time because things are going to be changing. So if you hear somebody that says you need to meditate every day at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, you know right away that that's not possible. It's not true. And I can assure you that there's nothing happening at 3:30 a.m. in the morning that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse than if you did it at any other time during the day. The Buddha meditated 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening. He didn't meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day. And the reason why I know that is that watches weren't even invented 2,500 years ago. He had no ability to keep that close, accurate time. So all he was able to do was keep track of morning, midday, and evening. And that's where he would meditate. So that's the same thing you would like to do. is have these anchor points where you can be meditating somewhere in the morning and somewhere in the evening. And if you can get a midday meditation in, great. But not everybody can actually do that. You won't get to enlightenment by just meditating once a day. But if you can get up to at least twice a day for 30 minutes, you'll be gradually making your way to enlightenment. And if you can get that third meditation in there, you're just going to see a whole lot more benefit in a lot shorter period of time. So I know that 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes of meditation can sound like a lot, particularly if you're an active adult with children and life partner, or you're working and things like this. But if you look at your life, there's probably certain things that you're doing right now that are possibly unbeneficial. And you could kind of pare that down. So if you're searching social media for multiple hours a day or watching YouTube videos for multiple hours a day, you could probably shrink that down a bit and make space for yourself to actually be meditating. Because you'd like to build up to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes, understanding that it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to that. You're not in a race with anybody. You're not in a competition with anybody. So just start wherever you start. If you start with once a day or twice a day, it's up to you. If you start with 5 minutes, or even when I first started, I was only meditating for 1 minute because my mind was so congested. It was too difficult to meditate anything longer than that. So you just start wherever you start and then just gradually expand it. If possible, you're not interested in using an alarm for your meditation, because if you set an alarm for your meditation, there's 1 or 2 things that are going to happen. You're going to either be meditating and thinking in your mind, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? And this is going to create an obsessive thought inside your mind. And that's what you're trying to get rid of. So if you don't need to, it's best to not set an alarm. Or you're going to be deep in meditation, getting all kinds of benefit. And next thing you know, your alarm's going to go off. And if you didn't set your alarm, you could have got so much more benefit. So where possible, like maybe in the evenings or on the weekends, you don't need to set your alarm, then don't set your alarm. But if you only have 15 or 20 minutes before you need to leave in order to go to work, and you're going to be late if you don't leave at that time, it's probably best to go ahead and set your alarm. So where possible, you're not interested in setting an alarm. The way that you can determine whether you've been meditating for a certain amount of time or not is look at your clock before you start meditating. Maybe it's 9 a.m. and now you start meditating. And then after you're done meditating, look at your clock again and it says 9:15. Well, now you know you've been meditating for 15 minutes, and next time just build that up longer and longer and longer and just go for a longer period of time. Over time, you will build kind of an internal clock in your mind where you'll know what 30 minutes is. But in the meantime, if you don't need your alarm, it's best to not use it. That way you can just focus on meditating, and when you're done, you're done. If you're noticing sleepiness during meditation, this is quite normal, especially when you're first getting started. The mind is doing a lot of work and it can become almost exhausted to meditate. It's almost like the mind has been left to its own devices for all these years, and now here you come to train the mind and it gets quite a bit sleepy. It's kind of like if you went to the gym and you were exercising the body, the first several weeks or months, you'll notice a certain amount of aches and pains in the body and maybe even some tiredness throughout your day. It's the same thing with meditation, that no matter how much you've been sleeping throughout your life, even if you're getting a good solid 8 hours of sleep, you might notice that when you're meditating, that your mind has a tendency to sleep more because the mind hasn't necessarily been sleeping well. You haven't necessarily been getting a good quality sleep. So now when you start exercising the mind, it's kind of like a dry sponge, and the mind's like, oh, thank you so much. Oh, this is exactly what I needed. Now I can rest. Now I can relax. So you might notice like a 3, 6 months, or even a year little hump where you have to kind of get over this hump of your mind wanting to sleep, not only during meditation, but during your day-to-day life too. You might notice more sleepiness. So if you're noticing sleepiness during your meditation, you kind of have 2 different options. You could switch positions, like if you were in the seated or lying position, you could just switch to a standing or a walking position, or you could just get some sleep. If that's what your mind needs, just get some sleep, take a nap. And then when you wake up later, then you can meditate then. In terms of your physical sensations in your body during the meditation. This is like itches or scratches. If you're noticing any of those kinds of things, if possible, you would like to just ignore it and just train your mind to continue to meditate, focusing on the breath. Just continue to meditate. But in some situations, you might notice that you have this strong urge to scratch your itch. And if you do that and you need to do it, then go ahead and do it. But if it took you 5 to 8 seconds to get to that point where you had to scratch the itch, next time try to make it a little bit longer, maybe 10 or 12 seconds. And then next time a little bit longer, 15, 20 seconds. And just try to extend it to the point where you understand that that itch or that scratch is not permanent. It's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. And you can practice to the point where it doesn't disrupt your mind and it doesn't disturb the mind. You might notice visual stimulation during your meditation. What I mean by this is you might see certain colors like green or white or purple, or you might have different images that you're noticing. Now, sometimes people contact me that aren't studying with me very closely, and they will say, I saw this color green. What does that mean, David? Does that mean I'm going to get rich? Or I saw the color purple. What does that mean? Does that mean my boyfriend or girlfriend's going to come back to me? It doesn't actually mean any of those kinds of things. And sometimes people think that they're a special person. The conceit starts to arise and they think they're so special because they're seeing these different colors. This isn't actually true. I'm going to explain to you what's happening here when you're seeing these different colors and things, and then you'll understand what's going on. So the eye itself is just a lens that takes in light. The sight is actually occurring inside the brain. So when the eyes are closed, you can actually still see because the sight is occurring inside the brain. When you're training your mind is non-physical, it's non-tangible. The brain and the mind are actually two different things, but there's a connection between these two things. And when you're training the mind, which is non-physical, it has an effect to the brain. The physical structures of the brain are changing. Doctors and scientists and researchers are able to measure this now, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they couldn't do that. So they're using MRIs and CAT scans and things like this to be able to see that the physical structures of the brain are changing. So as the physical structures of the brain are changing, it can actually produce different colors like white and green, purple, and all these other different things. You might even hear this occurring inside the skull. There were times where I was meditating and I could actually hear the brain physically changing. Because I used to walk around with a lot of pressure in the skull. I used to get migraine headaches. My eyes would hurt really badly. This was long before training my mind. And now I don't have any of that stuff. I don't have pressure in the skull. I don't have migraine headaches. I don't get soreness in the eyes and all those kinds of things. So when I was meditating, I could hear the physical structures of the brain changing, and I could feel the shift that the pressure was releasing inside the skull. So if you're noticing visual stimulation like colors or images or things like this is all completely normal. It's not permanent. And if you're noticing pleasant feelings arising because of these colors, you're going to need to cut it off and let it go, not allow the mind to indulge in that. Because if you get excited and happy when you're seeing all these colors, when they're not happening, you'll be sad and frustrated or irritated or some other discontent feeling, maybe disappointed. So just understand that this is an impermanent situation. Those colors will arise, change, and fade away. And when all the physical structures of the brain have changed, this will no longer occur anymore. It's not a problem. It's just something that you'll experience in your journey to enlightenment. And then lastly, some people are taught to meditate with external stimulus. What I mean by this is like beads or music, phone apps, candles, incense, things of this nature. If you've been meditating with those kinds of things up to this point, then okay, that's what's got you to this point. But now you would like to train your mind in the way that the Buddha taught, which is to train your mind to let go of all those things. Because if you continue to hold on to these things, your mind's going to be attached to them. There may already be attached to it. Whereas if you have to meditate with a favorite candle or incense or music or something like this, you're not going to be able to meditate anywhere, anytime. You would like to get to the point where your mind isn't attached to anything as part of your meditation. So maybe someday you're out at the park and you're walking around the park and The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, maybe the sun is glistening off the pond, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful scene. I'd like to sit down and meditate. Oh, I don't have my favorite candle with me. I can't meditate, right? So you'd like to get to the point where you don't have those dependencies. Or say you're on a camping trip and you're 3 days from civilization. You're walking out in the remote mountains in the forest of Chiang Mai, Thailand. And now you're 3 days from civilization and you'd like to sit down and meditate in the jungle. Well, if you don't have your phone app with you and the phone app doesn't work because you're not getting a cell signal, then you're not going to actually be able to meditate. So you'd like to train your mind to let go. So you might need to let go of these things like beads, music, candles, incense. You're not interested in these things being held on to. So if you need to let go of some of those things, the best way to do it is in small little increments, because the mind doesn't like big significant changes in your life. So if you do like little tiny small increments when you're getting rid of something, it'll actually be really helpful. So maybe you do one session with music or whatever it is that you have, and one session without it, one session with it, one session without it. Do that for like a week or so. When your mind gets acclimated to that, then do one session with it, 2 or 3 without. One session with it, 2 or 3 without. Do that for like a week or 2. And then increment that some more. One session with it, 3, 4, 5, 6 without it, right? And slowly but surely over time, you won't need this music or candles or beads or any of those other kinds of things, because there's only 3 things that you actually need to meditate. And you'll have these 3 things with you at all times during your day, all times during your life. You're going to have these 3 things with you for the rest of your life. All you need is the body, the mind, and the breath. Those are the only 3 things that you actually need. The body, the mind, and the breath. And if you have those 3 things with you, you can meditate anywhere, anytime. And this is really helpful. There are times where I've been in the hospital and I was hooked up to an IV and I needed to meditate. And I could meditate because I had the body, the mind, and the breath with me, right? So you're interested in building this long-term sustainable practice where you can meditate anytime, anywhere. And this is what's going to help you to move your mind to this enlightened mental state. So let me pause here and see if you guys have any questions on starting and conducting your meditation session. Remember, you can put that into the comment section of Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So let's move into some words of the Buddha, because here I've got some words of the Buddha where he's teaching 4 different meditations, or at least introducing them. He's not teaching them. He's just kind of introducing them and helping his students to know that it's important to practice these. Because right now in today's society, you're going to see countless meditations that are out there in the world. And all these meditations weren't taught by the Buddha. And oftentimes, if you're learning and practicing those meditations, it's going to take your mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment. In order to get to enlightenment, based in the teachings of the Buddha, you would like to get to as close as what the Buddha did as possible, because what he did is what's going to actually lead to your enlightenment. Any modifications or changes to his teachings isn't going to lead to awakening of the mind. So this is a discourse from the Buddha where prior to this, he was actually teaching some other things, and then he got to this point here where he says, having based himself on these 5 things, which is what he was talking about previously, the monk should develop further another 4 things. The perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. Loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is loving kindness meditation, which is going to help you eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions, like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike towards others. I'm going to start a 4-part series on this in about 4 weeks from now, where you can learn this meditation, because you're going to need this one as well. Then there's mindfulness of breathing, or breathing mindfulness meditation should be developed to cut off thoughts. That's what you're learning now. And that's what you usually start with, is that meditation. The perception of the perception of impermanence should be developed to eradicate the conceit I am, which when one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit I am, which is nibbana or enlightenment in this very life. So this is a meditation to realize non-self, which you'll understand more about what that is as you progress further in our program. These two, breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, everybody who's interested in getting to enlightenment based in the teachings of the Buddha would need to know those two meditations. And that's why we're spending time in the group learning program, making sure that over the first 2 months, you really understand how to practice these. These other two, the meditation to eliminate sexual cravings and the meditation to realize non-self, those are specialized meditations that not everybody needs. You will learn those as part of this program, but not everybody actually needs those. You can still accomplish the goals that the Buddha set out for getting to enlightenment without these meditations if you didn't if you weren't actually interested in doing these. There's other ways to accomplish the same goals. So this is where the Buddha is introducing his 4 meditations. If you see any meditation that's outside of this, the Buddha didn't teach it. And if you're interested in getting to enlightenment, that peaceful and joyful mental state that the Buddha taught, these are the 4 that you would specialize in, and you would really focus on them. Because if you try to spread yourself really thin and learn all these other ones, you're not going to be able to have the depth to be able to actually practice and master these meditations in the way that you would if you just focused on these. And as I mentioned, oftentimes those meditations are taking your mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment. So these are the only 4 that you would ever actually need as part of your journey to enlightenment. And that kind of really simplifies your need to be able to study and practice meditations. Focusing on these 2, breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, is where you really would like to start. And that's what I'm going to be doing with you in this program. These meditations that the Buddha taught, they're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities of the mind, and they're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind, just like I shared about the purpose of meditation and what you're actually doing. So your dedicated, active, purposeful training session, eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So this breathing mindfulness meditation that I'm teaching you is eliminating something called craving, desire, attachment. On Sunday, I'm going to help you to understand what this is. That's only a few days from now. I'm going to help you to understand what that is. But just so you know, this is the underlying cause that's producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, and all those other discontent feelings like stress and anxiety, guilt, shame, fear, loneliness, boredom, and all those others. So you need to be able to eliminate this from the mind. That's an unwholesome quality. Then you're cultivating the wholesome quality of mindfulness or awareness of mind and the wholesome quality of concentration. That's what you're cultivating as part of the breathing mindfulness meditation. These other 3 I will teach you at another time, but today we're just focusing on the breathing mindfulness meditation. So these are the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating, and this is the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. Some more words from the Buddha on meditation is he says, a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. So what he's sharing here is that a mind, which is the pot, without a meditation practice, which is the stand, is easy to become discontent. So a pot without a stand is easy to tip over means a mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. So what you're doing with your meditation practice is you're creating a wider and wider stand. Depending on how much you've been meditating in the way that the Buddha taught, you might have like a little dowel rod in your pot, or your mind is kind of teeter-tottering there. But as you meditate more and more and you become more proficient in this, the stand will become wider and wider, and it's harder and harder to tip over the pot. This next teaching here is where the Buddha is explaining the purpose or the priority of breathing mindfulness meditation. I'll read it to you and then we'll talk about it. He says, monks, there is one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing, Breathing Mindfulness Meditation. This is that one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So what he's saying here is there's one purpose for this meditation, and that is to get to the peace, to get to enlightenment, to get to nibbana. That's just a Pali word to refer to enlightenment. So there's one purpose for this meditation. There's no other purpose whatsoever other than to train the mind to get freedom from these strong feelings, to get liberated, to get to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state. He's not saying you only need one thing in order to get to enlightenment, because otherwise he would have just taught meditation and that's it. And we wouldn't have 45 volumes of books that contain his teachings. It's kind of like saying this: your car, it leads to one thing, which is transportation. But of course, you need more than transportation in your life to be able to lead your life and sustain your life. So he's saying that there's one goal and one purpose for this meditation, which is to get to enlightenment. In terms of how to do this meditation, you guys maybe have meditated with me just recently. If you've been studying with me, what you're going to be doing is focusing on the breath. As you're breathing in and out through the nose, you would like to focus on that sound, either the sound that's occurring inside the head or the sensation of air that's moving over the skin inside the nose. This is the present moment, and you would like to focus on that sound or that sensation of air, focusing the mind on that. Then, as the mind moves off of that breath, cut that off and let it go, and bring the mind back to the breath. You will have thoughts during meditation. The goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. It's to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. As a new meditator, you might notice that you have a bombardment of thoughts, where when you're in meditation, it's just like thought, 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 thought. If you're noticing that, that's very normal. Or you might have a thought and you look at it, you play with it, you indulge in it. Next thing you know, you're like 2 or 3 minutes down the road and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. If these two things are happening, or either of these things are happening, it's completely normal. You're not bad at meditation. It's just that the mind is undisciplined. It's untrained. And you might experience that for multiple years before things get better. An enlightened being still experiences thoughts during their meditation. But the difference is that when they have a thought, they notice it right away and they cut it off and let it go and bring their mind back to their breath. And then in between their thoughts, there's stillness and quietness. There's about 30 seconds to a minute between each thought, and there's quietness and stillness between each individual thought. So you're still going to have thoughts during meditation, but you would like to cut them off and let them go. This is building an internal mechanism within the mind to be able to train the mind to cut off and let go. So that now when you're in day-to-day life and you're noticing anger is arising, you can cut it off and let it go, because the mind doesn't know how to let go in the unenlightened state. You're going to understand this more when you learn the Eightfold Path over the next 3 Sundays. You'll understand why you're cutting off and letting go. It's building this internal mechanism in the mind to be able to easily let go, so that when you're noticing unwholesome qualities in your mind in your day-to-day life, you can cut that off and let it go. So we're training in meditation in one way, which is to cut off and let go of anything and everything that's coming through the mind. Whether it's a wholesome thought or an unwholesome thought, you cut it off and let it go. Building that internal mechanism, building your mindfulness or awareness of mind, your concentration, and the ability to cut off and let go. But then in day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts that arise. In day-to-day life, if you have the thought to call up your mom and take her out to dinner or lunch or check in on her and see how she's doing, you don't need to cut that off. You're not causing any harm. You can pick up the phone and give her a call and see how she's doing. But if you're at work and you feel like punching your boss in the face, you need to cut that off, right? Because it's going to produce unwholesome results for you if you punch him in the face or punch her in the face. It's going to cause unwholesome results. So when that unwholesome thought comes up, you need to cut that off and let it go. So you're training in meditation in one way, which is to cut off everything and anything. And then in day-to-day life, you're training in a different way, which is cutting off only the unwholesome thoughts. It's kind of like a professional athlete. That a professional athlete will go to the gym. let's just say I was a pole vaulter, and maybe I'm doing weight training. I'm doing cardiovascular training, agility training. But then when I go do my sport, it looks very different than what I was doing in the gym. So meditating is like exercising the mind. You're exercising the mind, and now you're building those wholesome qualities and eliminating the unwholesome qualities so that in your day-to-day life, you can practice those wholesome qualities and you can work on eliminating the unwholesome qualities. So let me know if you guys have any questions about any of these things that I've been sharing. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So I'll just end with one thing, and then I'll invite you guys to join for a meditation session if you'd like to do some meditation together. That these are words of the Buddha, where he says, meditate, monks, do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. This is the only thing you will ever get from the Buddha, where he's kind of like, okay, go do something, right? He's never going to try to guilt, shame, or fear you into anything. He's never going to try to convince you of anything or pressure you or force you to do anything. He's just helping you understand what it took for him to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. And complacency is something that the mind will typically have in the unenlightened state, where it's dull and lethargic and it's disinterested in doing the true work that needs to happen in order to get to the peace and the joy. It just wants to keep playing on social media. It just wants to keep playing video games. It just keeps wanting to go outside and party and do all these other unwise things. Instead, you're going to need to build into your life and prioritize doing meditation, where you don't allow the mind to be complacent. If you allow the mind to be complacent, then you're not going to be able to apply the tools and the techniques to really be able to see the improvement that is possible. So the Buddha is giving you the heads up that it's important to meditate, not allowing your mind to be complacent, because you're going to regret it later when you're noticing the anxiety and the sadness and the loneliness and the boredom, the guilt, the shame, the fear, and all these other feelings. You're going to really regret having not meditated. So that's what he's doing, is he's just giving you a heads up and saying, hey, don't allow the mind to be complacent. The way that I would say this, in addition to what the Buddha says, is to never give up. Don't ever give up on your meditation practice, no matter what happens, because giving up on your meditation practice is like relegating yourself to anger and sadness and frustration and all these other feelings for the rest of your life. And that's not a helpful way to be able to live your life. You can potentially miss a meditation here or there. That's normal, right? That's impermanence. If you're practicing what I'm recommending, which is 2 or 3 sessions per day, let's just take the 2 meditations per day. In a month, that's about 60 meditations. Well, if you're doing 52, 53, 54 meditations a month, you're still going to make your way to enlightenment, because you're going to miss meditations here and there. So your enlightenment isn't going to be determined based on whether you miss meditation today or not. If you miss meditation today, you don't need to put pressure on yourself and force yourself, feel guilty or shameful about that. Instead, just notice, I missed meditation. Let me get right back into that, right? Let me get on top of this and let me start meditating. So your enlightenment isn't going to be determined based on whether you miss meditation today or not. Your enlightenment is going to be determined based on, if you miss meditation today, what do you do next? That's what's going to determine whether you get to enlightenment. Do you allow that to become 1 week, 1 month, 1 year that you're not meditating? Or do you say, I missed my meditation. Let me get right back into this, right? That's what's going to determine whether you get to enlightenment. There was a period of time where I didn't meditate for 3 years. I thought I had given up on meditation and I stepped away from it, but I ultimately got back into it. During that 3-year period, it was a very difficult period of my life, and I'm never interested in repeating that ever again, and I never will repeat that ever again. But nonetheless, when I wasn't meditating, there was a lot of difficulties and struggles. So if you notice that your mind's headed towards 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days of not meditating, as soon as possible, get your mind back into meditation. Because the longer you allow your complacency to set in, the harder it is to get back into the meditation. That 3 years of complacency, it was really challenging to get the mind back into meditating on a regular basis. So as soon as you start seeing the mind wanting to be complacent and stepping away from training, that's where you'd like to be diligent and dedicated, determined, have enthusiasm and ambition to bring your mind back into the training. So I'm going to invite you guys to meditate together. If you'd like to meditate, I'm going to start with some chanting like I did previously. Then I'm going to provide you some guidance for the breathing mindfulness meditation. Then we're going to do the meditation where it'll be quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of that meditation with some more chanting. And then I'll open up one more time to see if you guys have any questions. You guys have been pretty quiet, but perhaps you'll have some questions after the meditation. So if you'd like to join for meditation, maybe pull up a meditation cushion or chair or whatever it is that you like to meditate in, and you're welcome to join along in the chanting. You'll find the chants on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books, and if you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see the chanting sheets there, because this is what I chant before and after each meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Apivateyami Savakhato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sambuddho Sakhato Rokavitu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanam Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. Either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind focused on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะเกวาโพตังมหะเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหะเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, so I'm going to see if there's any questions that you guys might have now that we spent some time learning about meditation and doing meditation together. If you guys have any questions about the meditation or anything we've been teaching today, just let me know. Okay, we have some things coming in here on YouTube. Let's see. Just need to increase this here. So it looks like someone's saying, okay, well said. How the meditation relates to the mind, like warming up and stretching for sports. I'm still looking for the right meditation. I enjoy walking. I've been chanting some Om. Okay. Yeah, so if you're interested in getting to enlightenment based on the teachings of the Buddha, I would encourage you to do the meditations that I'm sharing with you, because that's what the Buddha taught. And this is what leads to enlightenment. I know with 100% certainty, and this will work for all individuals. You just need to be able to learn it deeply and practice it closely, along with all the other factors of the Eightfold Path. It's not just meditation that's going to lead to enlightenment. So you're going to need other factors as well, besides just meditation. So if you'd like to join this program, you can go to our website, buddhadailywisdom.com. And if you click on the online learning, the very first option is for the group learning program, and you can see the group learning program. It's all available at no cost. There's books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, there's live classes like this. There's even the ability to get personal guidance. So if you're interested in making progress on the path, you're more than welcome to look at the program, reach out to me if you have questions, and then you can join into all of our classes on Sunday and Wednesday, and it'll really help you to be able to develop your practice, not just your meditation, but there's other aspects of your practice that you would need to develop in order to be able to move the mind to enlightenment. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do here is just share with you guys that in the coming weeks, I'm going to be doing part 2, part 3, and part 4 of this particular series of classes for learning breathing mindfulness meditation. What I'm going to be doing each Wednesday is I'm just going to be coming into class and I'm going to do meditation with you guys. Of course, I'll welcome you and do meditation with you guys. And then I'm going to open up to whatever questions you guys have. Each session, we're going to be elongating our meditation longer and longer and longer and longer. And what you would like to be doing is doing your meditation on your own, morning and evening. And if you can get a meditation in the middle of the day, that'd be great. And just work on elongating your meditation each session. I'm going to be doing that on each Wednesday with you, but you could be doing that on your own. So you'd like to build up this practice where over the coming weeks and months and years, you're gradually building up your meditation practice. And then in each one of these classes, you'll have an opportunity to reach out for guidance, to be able to get help on the breathing mindfulness meditation and anything else that you'd like help on. So each Wednesday, you're going to see that I'm going to be teaching this meditation for the next 3 Wednesdays. And then ultimately, we're going to get to the loving kindness meditation too, where I'll do the same thing, a 4-part series on that. So on Sunday, I'm going to be starting a 3-part series on the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha. And we're going to take our time here at the beginning of the group learning program, and I'm going to be breaking it down into 3 individual sections. And each Sunday, over the next 3 Sundays, I'm going to be going in depth with each of these sections. If you're interested in getting to enlightenment with the teachings of the Buddha, you're going to need to know this inside and out, backwards and forward. So that's why at the beginning of the program, I'm taking my time to gradually walk you through it. And then there's times in the future of the program too, in chapter 4 and 5, that we're going to be studying it as well. But here, right at the beginning of the program, we're going to really take our time to study it in depth. So perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Be well and take care. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Sawadee ka. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.